Home. Ah, AH. It's instant communication with the higher power, one mind. AH. Something you see, don't judge before you judge a good or ah, ah. It's that wonder, that sense of wonder. Okay. Oh, so much is going on. It's I'm taping my shows now on Saturdays. Saturday. So here it is, Saturday morning, the 5th of April. This is Psychic Frank's Mystery School. Um, and my email address is right there on the bottom, psychicfrank11 at gmail.com. And so much I want to talk about today. Uh, okay, so the big news is Venus is always going to have her way. If you have a big appointment and and you know a little bit about astrology, you know the birthday. You don't even need the time or the date that much. So yeah, they need the date, but not the time and location so much. Which you need to do a birth chart and just open your ephemeris and say, oh, this guy's a Pisces, very sensitive, spiritual guy, and he's as I said, he's got a Venus in Libra, so he's charming. So I gotta, be aware that I'm dealing with somebody very charming because Libra can be charming, and there's got to be balance. Okay, and judgment. It's all about justice. We're going to talk about that, and then, or say in Aries. So anyway. You want to play up to somebody's Venus. Like, say, a Venus, you're dating someone with Venus in Capricorn, Virgo, or Taurus, the Earth signs. It's got to go somewhere. This is not like a Venus in Sag where love them and leave them, pollinate as many flowers as you can, fire signs or love them and leave them fast, unless you've got, of course, other things that compensate for that, then it can be really passionate. Everything's got a higher and lower octaves. So I'm just saying the higher octave of Venus is Neptune, and they're in opposition right now. And the higher octave of Mars is Pluto, and they're in opposition right now. So they're being transformed. So the way and this is like hasn't happened for hundreds, thousands. I know not hundreds of thousands. I was going to say hundreds of years, but definitely a long time, over 1,500. Some people are saying 15,000 with all the other asteroids that haven't done what they're doing are doing it right now that hasn't happened for 1,200 years and stuff, dwarf planets and such. But that's why I listen to Pam Gregory. I love her. She's an astrologer out of the UK. Heather Ensworth. There's some. I like this guy Christopher Renstrom. I just found a few months ago. He's a kick in the pants and really, really right on about a lot of stuff. Actually, I haven't disagreed with him on any of these astrologers are so spot on, right? And yeah, this is paradigm changing. So as I said, the way I looked at the United States of America's birth chart as usual, being I reside here, and all this action now with. Neptune in Aries, and then in a month or so, Saturn will be in Aries. Neptune hasn't been in Aries since April 13th of 1864, 61. That was the Civil War started on April 12th, 1861. April 13th, 1861 is when the uh, Neptune left was in Aries, and that just happens to be Thomas Jefferson's birthday, by the way. Uh, and now Saturn every 29 years change, every 2.5 years changes signs. It's 30 years to go around the wheel. Where so Neptune's going to be in Aries. She's going to back up, and so will Aries back up into 29 Pisces, and that's when we're going to see 29 is what's called the anorexic number. Where we're going to see a lot of yuck from the bottom of the toxic stuff on the bottom of the pool come up to be purged by Rotor-Rooter, shoot it into outer space, man, to get it out of this planet, get it somewhere, or put it in a black hole. We're so afraid of black holes. Black holes would give birth. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for these black holes. But NASA's we got to fear black holes. They're eventually going to swallow up the Earth. Well, by then we'll probably need swallowing up. Oh, go get me started on NASA. So when I noticed that all this Pisces Aries energy and Aquarius moon, even though Aquarius now at 24 degrees, so we're going to have Pluto in Aquarius in our money possessions house for a good dozen years at least, and then it'll go into our over that line and into our moon 27 degrees. So right now it's time to purge, go through a good purging, because as I said, Neptune just went into Aries, but Saturn has there's still that Pisces energy going around with Saturn. So it's still time to, and be careful when you're doing your purging. You might throw out the best part of yourself. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about there, about our Venus and Marses are being all transformed. And boy, my relationship with my spirit guide, my guardian angel, as we like to call them, he's been with me in many lifetimes. I believe he's so advanced, such a high elevated soul. I believe in my case, he's, not in a hurry to incarnate again. I think vicariously his job is to be my guide. My guide. I feel like that song, My Girl, My Guide. Yeah, so recently, because I'm going on 77, and I had my first 3 years of my life, I don't want anybody to say, oh, poor Frank. No, lucky Frank. I was given to several different homes, and there was the orphanage, and then there was the foster home, and then there was the botched adoption, and then, then those people gave me to the saving grace of my grandparents for 4 years, and then, of course, took me back for another 9. So anyway, I had a lot of psychic wounds as a child, and they take a while to heal. So what happened was, I guess I healed. I've been healing since my Kundalini rose when Taurus was. Uranus and Taurus went into Taurus, and I have a Taurus moon in the 12th house. That was a year I'll never forget, because that's when my Kundalini became awake. I've done shows on that. I don't want to repeat it. But, everything really changed, to say the least. So what happened is... so what happened was, we're talking about this Kundalini energy, yeah. Okay, so what happened is in 15 years ago, okay, so it was like late 1900s, there, early 20, somewhere, okay, it was when 2015 passed. Okay, and it was just before that or something. My dog died. My best friend died, and Kathy Acker died. She wrote erotic fiction. I'm in the book she wrote. What's his name wrote it? A writer from the Village Voice and New York Times. I have it written around it. McBride, Jason McBride. He lives in Canada. Yeah, he interviewed me, and I'm in the book called Eat Your Mind, the Kathy Acker story. But it was after she died. My whole life, Pluto was transiting my son, nothing, and I just found myself just totally, everything in my whole support system was gone, and other things happened. I still had a place to live, so I threw myself into the cannabis activist thing, because that's when my friend Richard, my best buddy, we couldn't have been closer, was a part of. And I said, what are you doing hanging around those people? Well, after he died, I realized why. It was because he was an activist, and I needed to be an activist for cannabis. So what I'm telling you all this is because we've gone through the whole, I've gone through that whole, get cannabis legalized. I mean, and I remember it was a couple of years of when it was a nasty winter. two nasty winters, especially. And I remember, the winds in front of the federal building, the rain, and we'd be there with our posters. I was with Access of Love then. God bless Shona wherever she is for that, and a lot of other activists, people involved in harm reduction, cannabis harm reduction. We were all like totally out there, in all kinds of weather, getting people to vote for, legalizing cannabis. And then it got legalized, and we got thrown under the bus. London Breed wasn't having any of it. Before London Breed, while it was still being negotiated, you could go to Dolores Park, and people who would deliver, if you had your paperwork, we have a network. The cannabis community is that, a community. And as far as and London Breed, pretty good in divide and conquer there. So why I'm saying this is all for their mayor Daniel Laurie, because I tell you, it was a kick in the teeth. I don't even think Daniel Laurie, I hope you're listening to this. I hope a friend of yours is probably listening to this, because I imagine you have a lot of friends. You got money, you got a lot of friends hanging around. When the money's gone, they're gone. Okay, but hopefully, as old Billy song, what is that song? God bless the child that's got his own. God bless me, huh? Because I got my own, and that's about all. But that's all about now. You got yours, I got mine. Good luck getting yours. We're going to talk more about that. So anyway, yeah, if it was your birthday, you could go into, no matter how down and low where you are, for a lot of people on fixed incomes, on welfare, at the end of the day, at the end of the month, where they say there's a lot of month at the end of the money. And if your birthday happens to be at the end of the month and you wanted to smoke a joint, you could go into any cannabis place and they would give you a nice pre-roll, get you stoned for 3 days. And and London Breed, oh no, that couldn't happen. Outlawed giving pot away. So harm reduction was what we were all about, And when you assume, which we all did, you make an ass out of you and me. And what happened was, we all assumed, you didn't have to put down, you didn't have to include cannabis in harm reduction. Harm reduction meant cannabis harm reduction. And there were doctors and all kinds of legal people, caregivers, people who survived horrible addictions to heroin and whatnot, people who literally did a boomerang from death's door, all because of the cannabis is such a healing spiritual. It's a mysterious how it works for a lot of people, but it's a healing thing, and London Breed, sent her posse of devotees there to her cult into the federal building. I remember we were all there. We were, and a lot of people. We only had like 2 or 3 minutes, and people would say, "Oh, this guy's the head of." Is really a big shot. He knows all. He's a doctor at General Hospital, and let him speak. Give him your 3 minutes. And he spoke for a half an hour. I wish that had been on tape. Maybe it was a heartwarming. He talked about the benefits of cannabis, and then we also, I want to understand now that it was. I have it written down right here. What happened when Richard Nixon campaign in 1968, and his Nixon White House after that had two enemies: the anti-war left, me, and black people. You understand what I'm saying? This is John Erickman talking, and he said, "You understand what I'm saying?" He was saying, we knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities, which they did successfully. I remember, wow, I was still living with my parents then, and oh boy, Charlie, this Nazi, my adopted stepfather who disowned me. Well, he did. At the end, alcohol dissolves your bank account. He died penniless, so there was no money to disown me. But he did manage on his last breath to tell me how much he hated me. you know, he really wanted me, until his dying day, he wanted me to project his hook onto me, and I just wasn't buying it. Okay, we could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify night after night, vilify them. Night after night on the evening news. That's the fire. That's the gasoline that Charlie, man, he would listen to the news, and then he knew I was smoking pot, and he would just, like, I could see the hatred come out of me. He was totally brainwashed, like London Breed. It's a gateway drug, and Ronald Reagan, the war on drugs. But I say John Ehrlichman says, top Nixon aide. In an interview, it was published, the war on drugs itself was designed to target black people and hippies. Yeah, he says, we could arrest them, leaders, and all that, and vilify them night after night. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. This is, and then John Dean, he had a book in which it's out there, in which I remember, I read it years ago, but I remember vividly saying he was in the Oval Office with, one morning with Nixon, and and the aide came in, or intern, whatever you call him, young man or a woman, I guess, with an envelope full of papers, and he handed it to, and whispered something into the president, and handed it to him. And John Dean said, "What's that? What's that all about?" He said, "Oh, this is a couple of years now. I've been waiting for this. This is the report on cannabis." And then John Dean said he sat across from him and he watched him go through it. More and more, he started getting really angry and fuming, and finally just threw it in the garbage. So that's what happened there. So then, as I said, I've been an activist since I don't know, my earliest days, since the early '60s, mid '60s there. I think, it was, I remember I didn't start smoking regularly until I, was like 17, 18 years old, just, a year I graduated high school. But I remember before that, before I had a job, even a part-time job to buy the cannabis, I would smoke now and then, but for the most part, I don't want people to think I was smoking cannabis at 13, but I remember take a hit in there, smelling it in the air. But as I said, I have no regrets, and I always knew, even when I was going through rehab, and that was a $30,000 rehab, and they were fighting me, and because I said, eventually, I'm going to of all these toxic drugs, all pharmaceuticals, and all of the alcohol and every form, but of course cannabis, and they started, wow, boom, 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 metaphorically beating me up, so I just didn't talk about it anymore until I was at, I think they call it, I think Old St. Pat's. That was one of my home meetings, my first 2 years of recovery. I had an after plan, and there was this one old guy, Frank B., and he wasn't my official sponsor, but boy, he told me to read William James' Varieties of Religious Experiences, and I mentioned to him several times about, what's this about cannabis? I don't see the association. Yeah, I'm not going to drink anymore. He says, well, they think, most alcoholics, if they don't have a firm sobriety, and they run out, and they're really tempted, they might, alcohol, somehow they might use alcohol. Anyway, he said they might use this whole, cannabis might lead them to drink again. I said, so he said, no, if you believe you could handle, and I sort of like reality's a crush for people who can't handle cannabis, so it was interesting. I think it was like maybe 3 years after 82, 83, 84, around 85, 86, I used cannabis again. Because I was still doing stupid things, but I couldn't blame it on the weed. But I remember getting back into weed, man. Oh, everything is so beautiful and colorful. We need that psychedelic experience. Oh, yeah, and then getting off of tobacco. Oh, that made getting off of all those hard drugs easy. Getting off of tobacco was a mother, I'll tell you. And of course, cannabis. It was expensive. It was all hell. I was scrubbing floors for $1. But I remember every time I wanted a cigarette, I would smoke a joint. And after a while, I lost that, because I knew my key periods were after a meal, and also getting a dog. I said, oh yeah, I'd walk the dog, because after supper I always need to walk. I would always need tobacco, cigar, or and I would inhale those cigars, man. And I smoked the Gauloise, the French non-filter cigarettes. Oh yeah, I was a hardcore. I'm a Scorpio, man. You're gonna do everything. I never. Who drank one drink? I drank for oblivion. I drank like a fish. I smoked like a chimney. I had sex like a mink. I was like, live fast, die young, leave a good corpse. Until September 19th, 1982, when I left my body and came back this person. So that's what happened in a nutshell. That's another story. Okay, so anyway, my heart and soul. Oh, and Brownie Mary made cannabis. Went to jail because she wouldn't stop making cannabis. Because when the AIDS epidemic goes on, you listen to me, Mr. Bree, Mr. Laurie. I know you've been in this bubble, and I love you. A lot of my friends are bubble people, and we all have different paths. I'm not judging. Well, I guess I am. But the thing is, I'm giving you some knowledge here, brother. Okay, so what happened was no charge, and what happened was, Brownie Mary wouldn't stop making, it's where Nancy Reagan and the war on drugs, that was all to cover up the Contra thing. So anyway. I'm preparing for my show the other day, and I turn on the local news to get the weather report because that's all you can find. The news I get is from Amy Goodman, on Democracy Now, and Stephanie Miller, Politicals, whatever that show is, with Richard French. So I'm watching, and there comes Mayor Laurie, Daniel Laurie, Dan the Man. Comes out there and starts throwing around the word harm reduction, about the harm reduction. And I'm listening, I'm waiting for, when's he going to throw in the cannabis? It never was thrown in. His idea of what you have to do, I guess, during the plague, they did certain things that they didn't call it harm reduction. You had to do this because it was a disease going on, and you made sure, whatever you had to do, you had to do. Yeah, you got to give out these syringes. You got to make sure, and he's doing this thing now. You get clean syringes if you sign this paperwork and go into, what is this Gestapo thing doing? Carl Jung said when Bill Wilson went over to Geneva or wherever Carl Jung was living back then, and made an appointment with him. And he said to Dr. Jung, my friend Bill Wilson and Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob, Dr. Bob went to meet with and went back and talked to Pete Wilson, and they sat down and came up with the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So getting back to Dr. Bob, went to had a session with Carl Jung, and he said, I hear you, it's all around that you've had great success with alcoholics and heroin addicts and old people like that. And he said, well, you heard wrong. And he said, what? He said, yeah, I told him, go away. I can't do anything for you. You need a spiritual experience. And then Dr. Bob went back and he sat down with Bill Wilson, and they came up with the 12. Because if you work the 12 steps, and I know it's true, you will be so cleansed, you will have an awakening, and you will be, your higher self. Your Buddha nature will come out. Your Buddha nature will come out. So what the cure is you just, Mr. Laurie, Mayor Laurie, you're just doing the same. 4 years from now, it's going to be the same shit, different day. Excuse my language there, but you just, once again, you're you're going in with the problem. You're ignoring the cause. You're dealing with the effect, and you're totally ignoring the effect. And there's thousands of people who know the benefit of harm reduction, the benefit of cannabis, and yet you're promoting alcohol, which I have all the data here, is there's no satisfactory amount. The amount of alcohol that's good for your body is zero. Goose egg. No, zero. And now they said this, the World Health Organization is being shut down, so God help us there. So it was like, I don't know if you know the damage you did, how you hurt people like me, because I'm not by any means the Lone Ranger here. So many of us are, like London Breed actually, ran on the fact that her sister died of a heroin overdose, and I guess we all assumed she was going to come in there and really, yeah, harm reduction, cannabis could have saved her sister's life, and I believe it's the truth. And many people who are doctors who know the experience. How many of these people in City Hall that are pushing you around, Mr. Laurie, have been to medical school? None. None. They're all in it for the money. They're all bisexuals, B-U-Y. And you got in with the biggest one. I was worried about you falling into the London Breed crowd, that cult at City Hall. There's one or two guys at City Hall I like. This one guy is district of the super. He came into my building, and I didn't let him in because I was having a rough morning. And he left me a thing with his autograph on it. He's got an Indian-sounding name. And I wish I had let him up to my apartment. Oh, I could have had his ear for an hour. But anyway, if you're seeing this, you know who I'm talking about. I'll have I saved it. It's on my bookshelf. I always look at it and say, God, this is the only good one we have in City Hall. So we have one or maybe two. The rest, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. But no, you and Porter, you went back. You got Wiener on your side now, who's going. Both of you are going through what's known as a midlife crisis. So but man, I just want you, before I switch the subject here, harm reduction. How could you ever utter those words and leave cannabis? Cannabis is harm reduction. What you're doing is just a necessary public service. And you're not going to even do that anymore. You're going to let people effing die if they don't sign their soul over to you. So these people are suicidal. Do you understand? Nobody would do this to themselves if they weren't suicidal. And you're just ignoring that and thinking some pharmaceutical or some prison or rehab. Oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, I wish I could shake you and wake you and say, get real, man. Get real, Okay, that's enough. That's enough, because I'm only aggravating myself. I'm sort of on a honeymoon here because I couldn't be this emotional in my apartment because my parrot would be screaming her head off because she mimics me. When I laugh, she laughs. As a matter of fact, I have a few good friends around the world, and she knows their voices on the speakerphone. And whenever she knows I'm happy, she'll laugh. Oh yeah, most psychics have a weird relationship with their parents. So I'm not going to say anything more than that. But man, harm reduction means cannabis. Cannabis is harm reduction. Oh, what you can do is recall all those people. From what I hear, the doctor who was he got out of General Hospital. I don't know where he is now. He realized he was he was fighting. He was pissing against the wind. It was London Breed. They all bought this whole Richard Nixon stuff. Forget it. No, and now they're all like Al Gore wrote a book, Inconvenient Truth, and it was. And it's true, if this planet's going to be saved, there's some industries that are going to have to go by the wayside. The industrial military complex, the industrial pharmaceutical complex, NASA. Oh man, they've been on the gravy train for decades now. NASA's job is to protect us from comets. We went to the moon, great. That's about it now. It's just a matter of time now before one of these major satellites, it's becoming like a dump site now, will just, knock everything out. And this whole idea now, people, I gotta plead again, like rockets, moonshots, spending on the have-nots. Marvin Gaye knew that. When in '68 there, when those white guys landed on the moon, there was this big protest going on in Harlem about, they have no right doing this, ignoring it's gotten worse now. NASA, Hollywood, with the help of the government, and idolizing these people, these astronauts now, and they actually look in the camera and they say, our species depends on NASA conquering space. This is like an ant saying, I'm going to have sex with that elephant. I'm going to conquer this infinity. I'm going to conquer. Where are their humility? And they come back, saying, oh, it was such a spiritual experience. It's not like a ride. There's psychics now. You could have gone there through astral projection. There's so many things, psychic ability. There's so many psychics on this planet, psychic healers. Reiki people now have nothing to. Hospitals are death mills, excuse me for that. Hospitals are death mills. Doctors now, I don't even go to them anymore because I know I'm in perfect health. My cholesterol is perfect. And I had to find a new doctor because this one mother was totally pissed off that he's known me for 30 years. And he listens to my lungs. He goes, your lungs are in perfect shape. He's looking at my stats, all my blood results. He says, I was a borderline cancer, from liver cancer. I almost died from that. And instead of saying, wow, what are you doing? We should learn from you. He tested me for syphilis because he thought, because of my consciousness, I must be out of my mind. No, brother, you're the one. Because if you would accept something I'm selling here, many like me, you couldn't go on what you're doing now. You're a pimp for the pharmaceutical industry. You're just a shill. People are dying now. This is no disco. This ain't no party, man. This ain't no fooling around. People are losing their lives. All because, and I thought, wow, we got a new mayor now. Maybe we'll get harm reduction done. And then the other day, you could imagine, I literally was laid back. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Never disappoint a child or an alcoholic. I'm neither. So, okay, I know what I'm dealing with now. You're no friend of the cannabis community, mister. And you're no friend. I stop it. Okay, just get away from this, Frank. Let it go. You say what you need to say about Daniel Laurie now. Here's my number. Get a hold of me. Take two. Call me in the morning. Psychic Frank 11 at gmail.com. The evidence of our global predicament is based on abundant evidence, not some sidewalk lunatic wearing a sandwich board yelling, the end is near, quote unquote. Only through a willful blindness can one not be aware of the challenges we face. Global climate change, polluted air and water, exploding populations, habitat and species loss, water scarcity, desertification. Yeah, we're making deserts now, We're groundwater is I turn Niagara Falls, Okay, murderous ideologies, resource depletion, grinding poverty, endless war of choice, ethnic and religious hatreds, on and on. All abetted by the I've got mine and every man for himself philosophy that currently infects our society. I have chosen not to dwell on the specific threats of self, however, many other writers have done so brilliantly. My approach rather has been a roundabout and sideways to tell the truth about it in a slant, as Emily Poet advised. Emily Dickinson advised. Yeah, this is talking about Thomas More's book, One Mind. And okay, so Mars, the end of April is going to have it on the 17th of April this month, April 2025. Mars is going to go back where it was in October, November, when it entered Leo, and it's going to enter Leo again and leave Cancer. So while it's still in Cancer as I speak, it's all about our emotional. One second here. One second. Boy, I got a lot of stuff here. Okay, it's about our emotional intelligence, emotional reaction. Oh yeah, what I was saying now, the earth is not a platform for human life. It is a living being. We are not on it, but part of it. Its health is our health. I speak earth. And what's going on now? The tornadoes, the tsunamis, the earthquakes, the volcano eruptions. This is the earth saying, help, I'm alive, you're killing me, you're killing yourself, I die, you stupid M's, you stupid mother somethings. Yeah, well, Uranus is going to leave Taurus and go into Gemini next year. And all you Geminis now, you can't say, well, the last time that happened, because it happened before you were born. It's like, just about 100 years ago. It has a shorter orbit than Neptune, but it's still a pretty long one. So not many people say, I remember the last time Uranus, although I do have a friend who's just turned 90, and he's having his Uranus return in Taurus. But Uranus will be in Gemini now, so it's no more thinking it out. You could think the life, you can analyze the life, analyst paralysis. You can analyze the life out of anything. Like the cannabis research was done with Richard Nixon. 2 years he ordered it. It came in. He was still in office. He was sitting there with John Dean. The results of it came in. What it said was, yeah, it's harmless. That's true. That's murder for the liquor industry. But what it would done for health alone, it's so important. It's so important. Okay, and what I'm saying now, 50 million Native Americans were slaughtered to make America great. Think about that, because I'm really close to the American community, American Indian community. Actually, they have a place down in the Mission now that they're fighting to stay alive, Mr. Laurie. It started, I'll tell you, we put... things are so bad now. We put our governor, Gavin Newsom, on a pedestal. But his whole thing was to homogenize this city. He wanted to make it Mill Valley, keep the black and colored or brown people. They're the help. They don't need to live in the city. And all through, up right as we can now. I talk to police all the time. I live right across the street from Patricia Green Park. I'm always talking to the cops there. And they're always, we're friends. Let's put it that way, because they knew it was just vulgar what London Breed did to the residents of this city. Took an axe to all of the noise reduction. There's no department there. It's there's two people. They're gutless. What Donald Trump is doing to the London Breed and Ed League, especially London Breed, she especially took an axe, but thank God now things are settling down. So maybe the word is out now. Thank God we got rid of that nasty London, totally out of her league. But exactly what we needed to wake me up. I tell you that. And her minions are still pretty much out there, pretty much in our city hall. So these couple of newly elected, really nice city hall people now. Oh yeah, I wouldn't want your job for all the tea in Mexico, I'll tell you. Yeah, because these guys are ruthless. If you had seen these bitches, that's the only word you could put it for them, We were sitting there, the room was so crowded, people were on each other's shoulders at the Federal Building, and it was this like one person on the board was sympathetic to us, but the ringleader there, she was just like pit bull, and she was just like, shut up, sit down. She was saying this to educated people, doctors who put their whole life and was swearing how helpful cannabis and the cure. We would have never have had this where we are now, stepping over bodies. Alcohol is toxic. Psychoactive dependence-producing substance has been classified as a Group 1 carcinogen by the Internal Agency for Research on Cancer decades ago. This is the highest risk group, which includes asbestos, radiation, and tobacco. And now you think we need to, I feel sorry for the alcohol industry, but hey, you've been on the grave, you've been fighting cannabis reform up until 2015. All the resistance we had to cannabis was all by Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, and all those people all invested millions and millions, when a million was a million. To fight the cannabis reform. I've been into cannabis reform since '72. I'll be 77. So, and then to have this little whippersnapper, Lori, come in there. And excuse me, I'm trying to get this. I'm getting as much respect as I can for you. But man, when you purposely said, I can't, well, maybe I walked in the room too late and I didn't hear him say cannabis. But no, cannabis was not even on the board. Your idea of of harm reduction is giving junkies free, clean needles. I got so much respect. I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole because God forgive me what I might say. Man, you're in we got ourselves a bubble on our hands, honey. My brothers and sisters of San Francisco who have a brain. You see what I've got? See what we're dealing with here? Help me. Get the phones back on. Get the goddamn phones back on, man. This is it. The media is all we need. You want to hear what the people say, Mr. Laurie, Mayor Laurie? Get these phones back on. People with disposable incomes now, for kicks and giggles, get on the phone with Bayvac, the city hall, and say, "What can I do? How much could this be a month, a year?" I know Bayvac, Comcast demanded when we were on Potrero Hill with Bayvac's office was up there. One of the heads of Bayvac said to me, "Frank, they want $8,000 a month to tag your shows on. When you pick up your show and you go through the menu and you see, 7:30 Saturday, Psychic Frank's Mystery School. You don't see that, anymore. You probably see, if his schedule's even on there, you'll see SF Commons. But you won't see, that all happened way back. I mean, when the first year Bayback took over. And the city was in a rough time. Obama's stimulus is what paid for all the original equipment to make us SF Commons be able to take phone calls. So Obama knew the importance of public access TV. But obviously, Mayor Laurie's no Obama. And believe me, I don't like his center-right position, so I've said enough about Obama, but I do, his heart was in the right place, and I think yours is too. As I said, I really have nothing good to say about President Trump, but the other day, I have a new spirit guide, said to me, well, he's the same guy, but he's known as a different name. He made me, there was some clip on the TV, on the computer. I was going through something recent on YouTube, and they have all these political clips. And there was a clip of a hot mic where Donald Trump, this was like just last week, was talking to a group of people, and he turned and said to someone, I don't know what the question was, and he turned with the startled, amazing look on his face that I've never seen. And he said, "Do you know if I had lost this election, I'd be in prison right now?" And I said, "Oh my God." He said the truth. For the first time in all these years, Donald Trump uttered a truth. So his Buddha nature is there. His Buddha nature is there. It's not dead. There's a spark. Where there's a spark can turn into flame. Sparks can turn into flames. So I always say he has no conscience, which is true, and he believes everyone is the same way. But no, he has a conscience. I saw it the other day. It was just a flicker of it. But I said, oh no, he knows. He knows. That's why he's going for these three term, because he knows the minute he's out of office. There's still they didn't get him, but there's these clauses, these little loopholes that when his term is over, he can be recharged for the things he did. And especially New York, and I don't know about the federal stuff, but those New York charges are definitely, so he knows that he better do it all now. But nobody, even on the liberal shows I watch, nobody's making that connection. He knows. Maybe they didn't see what I saw, but he said, I saw it, and it was, I guess, a CNN or MSNBC clip where he actually said, and the look on his face when he delivered that line, like, I'd be in prison right now, yeah, and it was like, and I would have deserved it, because I'm, all that. Okay, listen, I'm going to calm down and leave you with something pleasant, because I've got, less than 10 minutes here, 15 minutes. Okay, Buddha is based on these five uh, truths, dharma, what do they call it? What we call them here in the West, the canon, I guess you'd call it the canon, similar to that. Ways that point out the tremendous, tenuous, tenuous, tenuous and unreliable nature of the shifting, conditional reality we know as life. Our bodies have limited shelf lives, semicolon. They are impermanent and changeable. This is not religious dogma. It is just how it is. Being ephemeral, our bodies are ultimately dissatisfying. Who can get lasting fulfillment from a mere body, from sensual experiences? From even the most exquisite body experiences are fleeting and ephemeral. Uh, Lenny Bruce said, dying's the best rush of all. That's why they save it for last. I love that. Leaving us thirsting for more. But we have some minutes, and before I really get into this, I want to mention when I was doing for years, when cannabis was, we had that brief mecca where there was hopeful that cannabis was going to be, the reform we wanted, and it turned out to not be, just sold to Big Brother. But, and I'd be sitting there in these cannabis things, and people would line up to sit with me. I do like mini readings, and do their chakras. Sit down and it's not Reiki, but I put my hands a little bit over their heads and I just spend like 2-3 minutes and then I'd say a few words to them, pick a few cards for them, and they'd blow their minds. So I looked up and they were like a whole, and this would happen every fair I did, and I remember one down at the Civic Center. I look up and there was this pretty disheveled guy there looking at me. This was like 15 years ago, and then he looked at me and I said, "Well, sit down." And I did this thing on him, and he went, "Wow, what did you do to me? Who are you?" And then I said, and I saw on his hands, as he was picking a tarot card, full of syringes, full marks, tracks. And I said, if you stop sticking a needle in your arm, your life will get better. Because he asked me, is my life ever going to get better? I said, but you're going to have to stop that. I said, cannabis can help you. I said, there's a lot of help out there, but you've got to stop, maybe, seek medical help. And then, of course, I couldn't spend much time with him. But I looked up, and, he was a different guy, And as I said, that was, something came to me the other day there. But these people are crying for a spiritual experience. And you're not even on the same page. We're like in parallel universe, man. You want to, and all you're causing, you're going to be in the worst. Come to see me. I wanted to go to your room. Go to your room and meditate, and then when you find your Buddha self, get a hold of me. psychicfrank11@gmail.com. And I want you to stop running around with that wiener boy. He's a bad influence, you Daniel Wiener. Laurie. Walk like a man, Dan. Our bodies are limited, our feelings of certainty, our certainty ephemeral. Yeah, we're all looking for that, the longing for certainty. We all want that certainty. We want a psychic to tell us, walk out of here and do this, and then your life will, no, this doesn't work like that. Our feelings of certainty are ephemeral. So are our perceptions of our intentions. States of consciousness change all the time. In fact, we are all works in progress. Like it or not, we are never the same. Remember the Greek philosopher Heraclitus who said, you can't step into the same river twice, quote unquote. You can't step into the same river twice, unquote. Each of us is like a river whose waters are forever changing. Westerners often use quote-unquote mind as a primary definition for the self. I think, therefore I am. But Buddhism points out that you are not what you think. Like the weather, what you think is unpredictable and subject to change. Because of this, untrained mind is also essentially unreliable. Your thoughts and feelings lack permanence. This is a fact of conditioned, conventional existence. Moreover, who and what you are when you are not thinking or in the brief moments in between thoughts, do we intermittently cease to exist? On the other hand, your innate, ineffable Buddha nature is not impermanent. It is not subject to change. Its inner light is unbound, untrammeled, and immaculate, sacred and immaculate. That's your Buddha self, Mayor Laurie. Uh, Wiener's soul, he's dirty. He's dirty. Wiener's dirty. He's a dirty guy. This it can be relied on. Your Buddha self can be relied on. It can be depended on. It's perfect, inherently wise and warm, free and complete from beginninglessness, beginning, actualizing that luminosity, formless and intangible core is what awakening is all about. Well, Uranus is awakener, and now we are all being awoken. Shake me, wake me when it's over. Oh yeah, I found this book. I picked it off a shelf today, and I hadn't picked this up in a long time. Um, uh, uh, Wonder is, as I said, we have to make friends with our minds. So many people curse their mind. They hate their mind because it keeps them awake at night. If you can't sleep at night because you're awake in somebody else's dream, your soul or something like that. But no, make friends. Don't curse your mind. Make friends with your mind. That's why we're on this planet. That's why you have nature here. There's no streams and brooks and picking watercress out of a stream and eating a lunch and smoking beautiful flower bud weed. Sativa. If you, so many people say, well, I smoked it once and it put me to sleep. Well, you smoked indica. Yeah, it puts me to sleep too. Sativa, man, that'll get to put. Harry Belafonte was singing this. Deo, Deo, work all day on a drop of rum. No, work all day on a hit of weed. Daylight coming, I wanna go home. I smoke 2 joints in the morning, smoke 2 joints at night. It's a whole culture, man. This our forefathers, the Constitution. I looked it up. Yeah, it was finally the final product of the Constitution was on parchment. But all the drafts, and there were many, all on parchment. There's copies of it. Yeah, parchment was like George Washington planned it everywhere. Yeah, and go to jail for life, prison industry. Ross McElreamy, I'll tell you, maybe you don't know the story, Daniel Laurie, but they crucified Mayor. We had the best sheriff, McElreamy, who was really into prison reform. And boy, they set him up like a bowling pin, knocked down, and that's the way it's been, And I thought, wow, this is a breath of fresh air, And now, 2 months into it, and I could see the writing on the wall, man. Unless you wake up, we're up fucking Ship's Creek. You understand? You capiche what I'm saying? Man, it's a shame. It's a shame now that you would use the word. All the people that I fought with. For cannabis to be legalized are rolling over Brownie Mary, who knew the medical party. She would slap your face. That old lady would slap your face, like Eartha Kitt did to Lady Bird Johnson. That's how the war ended. Lady Bird gave a party, a tea party, and Eartha Kitt got invited. Eartha Kitt, God bless her soul, got invited. And she slapped Lady Bird's face about the black people. The draft was all about the black people. Barbara Lee. I wish she had ran for mayor of San Francisco. She's running. I don't know. Maybe she lost or won. I don't know. I can't keep up on it in Oakland. But she looked at the camera last month, and they asked her what she thought of cannabis. Legalization, and she didn't have to think about it. She just looked right at the reporter into the camera, and she said it should never have been illegal in the first place. So you're just totally listening to the wrong people, and great spirits have always encountered opposition from mediocre minds. The mediocre mind is incapable of understanding the man who refuses to bow blindly to conventional prejudices and chooses instead to express his opinion courageously and honestly. Albert Einstein said that. And I rebuke you as much as I rebuke London Brood Mary. So I wish we had gotten off to a better start, but in a way, watching TV yesterday morning and hearing you sprout off all this crap about harm reduction, but all the while what you're doing is just your basic health. It's nothing to do with harm, reducing harm. Man, I'm still like, it's like I still haven't really processed it, I listened. I listened to it twice. Yeah, I caught the same clip on the. It's like maybe I just came in late. No, you're just totally ignoring the, think you're just going right to this mainstream garbage. Anger is an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than anything on which it is poured. So I want you to be angry, but I don't want you to kill yourself with it. I want the anger, like Gandhi said, to fuel, use anger as a fuel to get your ass in front of City Hall. Get out. It's like the hokey pokey. You put your whole self in, you put your whole self out, you put your whole self in, and you shake it all about. Yeah, we got the man with the Midas touch. I move forward, free from the past. I am safe. I am free. All details take care of themselves. But no, what we got now is just us. We want justice. This is what we got. We got to be just us. Here's a beautiful little thing. You got to note to yourself here. Treat yourself the way you would treat a small child. Feed yourself healthy foods and make sure you spend time outside. Put yourself early to bed. Let yourself take naps. Don't say mean things to yourself. Don't put yourself in danger. Skull and heart are still as fragile as eggshells. Many people. I forget her name now. This black woman wrote. I got one of her books. Many people say if you're going to cure yourself from cancer, it's political warfare. Your whole diet has to change. There's an industry now, it's called the preservatives industry. You've got departments in this city that London Breed took an axe to, and I think little by little you might be bringing them back, but I'm not going to thank you for that yet. Because right now I'm still smarting from you literally knocked my dentures across the room. I'd say my front teeth, but I'm 77, and from my junkie years, my teeth, went. Every rotten tooth in my mouth is gone. Okay, nothing is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. I don't think you're that stupid. I believe you've been living in a bubble. Amen to that. And I believe we went for the bubble to the wrong, like I said to our mayor of this city, what's her name? Does your mother know you're running around with London Breed? Well, does your mother know you're hanging out with Wiener? He's the guy your mother said stay away from, and you're right up his ass. I don't know how else to say it. I don't even think I'd like to sit with him. Even if he wanted to, yeah, I'd sit with him. Okay, the most beautiful and profound emotion we can experience is the sensation of the mystical. It is the sower of all true science. He who this is an emotion is a stranger who can no longer wonder and stand wrapped in awe is as good as dead. See, that's what cannabis does. It makes you enjoy the journey. There's more to life than getting there faster, than getting as drunk as you can. If you made life more livable, maybe they wouldn't want to get drunk to oblivion. Maybe they would want to put it out there that, as I said, when I was on Facebook that 2 years, a lot of my friends are, big wheels in universities on the East Coast, all over the East Coast. And I didn't realize when you were in Facebook, you are actually, whoever you're, they're into you. So things I was saying to someone, everybody else is saying, and then they would give me their comments on it, and people were threatening my life, So, this, their Facebook is and these guys were saying, when I said something to this professor in Boston U, he said, well, your friend sounds like Spicoli. Spicoli in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the van, you open the van, and these kids start falling out in the pot smoke. Well, yeah, when you're kids, you do shit like that. But, uh, anyway. Um, Cannabis is good medicine, and they say use it modestly. Use it as much as you want. You'll never overdose from it. There's no such thing as a cannabis overdose. You might sleep, you might put on a few pounds, and if you're a glutton, you'll put on a lot of pounds. Now, see, gluttony's not going to be dealt with anymore. It's not a virtue because now gluttons can take a shot and the weight will go away. They don't have to eat right. They could whatever. Hopefully, it'll entice them to live. Okay, my hour's up.